who's ready to upcycle? This week, we are going to focus on some really fast and easy techniques that you can use for many different types of garments. And thank you so much for all of your comments that you've been leaving and techniques that you want to see a little bit more in depth. So while I have quite a few larger designs that I'm working on, in this video, we're just going to focus on those super fast techniques that we can do. Those little things that you can actually build upon to get started, or is just maybe some inspiration for you to make something that you won't wear actually wearable. Now, this right here, these are all of the items that I have in our tentative pile to work on. So I have a whole list of techniques that you've all shared with me that we are going to pull from. A couple of these are already planned out. In fact, let me show you the most important one, I think, for this week. So the most important upcycle this week is this one. And the reason for this is I'm actually going on a Goodwill thrift bus. Our local Goodwill has done this before, a couple years ago, and I participated. It was amazing. Essentially, they charter a bus. You get taken, chauffeured to multiple thrift shops, Goodwills, around your area. They provide lunch, and they give you 50% off. Yes, 50% off all of your purchases for the day. So it's pretty amazing. I'm going to be stocking up, hopefully, on a lot of items to upcycle. But what that means is all of those items that are in my to-do pile really need to get taken care of ASAP, so I have the space. But the reason that we're going to upcycle this t-shirt, let me tie it in and make it make sense, is because the bus also has a theme, and the theme is 90s. And so I got this t-shirt on Poshmark, and now it's just time to turn it into something that I'll actually wear. So we'll be upcycling this piece along with many other pieces. So hopefully it'll inspire at least one of you to make a dent in your upcycle pile. And for our first of the day, we're actually going to make a headband. I am going to be making a gift for a friend of mine, Kelly. She is amazing. She is a card designer. She teaches card making, and she's just all around an amazing human. So I just want to make her a little gift. She has the ability to wear the brightest, loudest, most whimsical things and just make it look amazing. So I want to make her just a really fun headband, and I'm imagining a wavy headband that kind of looks like a crown. Essentially, we're just going to make a really long rectangle. So you can take any of those scraps that you have and just stitch them all together and then turn that into the headband. And again, this is a very quick project. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is make this headband. So first thing you need is to cut out your piece of fabric. So you need to take into account a few things: how big you want your wiggles to be, and also how wide your headband is. So I have a bunch of these. I was crocheting cat ears for a while, and it fits a wide variety of sizes, so that's good news. So what we're gonna do is I've already cut this fabric. So this is 17.5 inches, and the half inches is going to be for my seam allowance. This measures about 15 inches. These were fabric scraps that I had. You can use anything that you have as long as you can cut it into a rectangle the right size. This was like a secondhand fabric that I thrifted and used it for other projects. I had scraps left over, so this is just a great way to give it new life. Also, the person that I'm making this for, I know she loves this print. After you square it off, and like I said, I did 17.5 inches, and my width it's about 7, not quite 7, but it's about 7 inches. And you can adjust that. So we are going to fold our piece in half, and the folded over edge, this is going to be our channel for our headband. So in this case, we'll end up, when we fold this right side out, we're going to end up doing about whatever this is about 1/4 of an inch, a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch channel, all the way down once we fold it right side out. But also keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out the width that you want, because you will have to take away some of that for your channel. Also, if your fabric is floppy, you may want to add some interfacing. So I don't have any large pieces of interfacing, but I do have some scraps. So we're just going to Frankenstein this, and I'm going to go through and I am going to put some interfacing all the way down, leave that's about 3/4 of an inch down here on both edges because I don't need to have extra fabric there because I am going to be folding that under and stitching it by hand to close it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the rest of my interfacing. I'm going to go press it on, and then we'll get into creating the wiggle. Okay, so now that I have added my interfacing, I just press that on. Again, a little Frankenstein action. I'm kind of just mapping out where I want my waves to be. Now, you could get really technical. You can use shapes to create the curves. I'm doing that just to kind of eyeball it. The thing that I want to keep in mind, though, is we have that channel that's going to be right here, and then we also need to have, I would say, probably about an inch. I think that we need to have at least an inch right here so it's easy to stitch this by hand to close. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. It could be easier so that you get uniform, or so that you get uniform wiggles, to fold your piece in half. And again, this is just if you're worried about having the exact, uniformity. I'm not too concerned, but I definitely want to, not make it look silly. And I think because of the size, I don't really have enough space to do more than 5. You can also just wing it, and you could just go follow the curve as you go around. And yeah, we're just going to wing it. But before I do that, because I don't want this fabric to shift, clip it in place a couple places. Okay, so now that I've cut off that extra, I'm gonna go through, stitch all of these together, and then we'll turn it right side out. So now I'm gonna use my pinking shears around these corners. Typically I would clip, but pinking shears do a lot of that work for me. So now I need to turn this right side out. I got it turned right side out, and I pressed, and then I just did about 1/4 of an inch from the edge, and that's gonna be our channel. Now, I had the hardest time turning this right side out because there was just so much bulk. So I did poke a hole through it right here, but it's just going to be on the edge of the headband, and I'm going to use some fray check on there, so it'll be fine. So now I'm going to feed our headband through the channel. One thing that I will say, add way more than you think. So in this case, I only added that 1 inch here. I probably could have added 2 more additional inches to this, and it would actually have been much better. So now I need to figure out a solution for this here. So I have this random piece of bias binding, so we can always use bias binding. Let's see, so we can stitch this together, fold that over, and we can stitch that on there like this and create our edge. And that'll actually give us a little bit more cushion here as well. So that is what we are going to do. And I'm gonna go ahead and press under both edges just so that's done. It'll make it a little bit easier. Fold it up like this to enclose everything, and then just wrap it around one more time. All right, so this took me a lot longer than I had anticipated. I'm trying not to be such a perfectionist, but it's kind of hard to give that up. But I am super happy with how it turned out. So we've got this t-shirt. Here is the front. Here's what the back looks like. It's kind of a dingy white. It's been washed and oxyed. It's at least the pits are not bright yellow. There is a little hole in the back where the tag is, or where the tag was. They cut it out, and then of course there's a hole. Happens all the time. Super easy fix. We're just going to take a couple of whip stitches and put that together. So I didn't want to overthink this. So I'm just going to go with the idea that right now is popping into my head. So we're going to fix a little hole in the back. Then I'm going to do some hand embroidery around the neckline. I think I'm just going to do a crisscross. I like doing a crisscross, and I'm going to do it in a color that is complementary. So like a turquoise or a purple or a yellow. This is kind of a neon yellow, but I do love a yellow. So that's going to be first thing. We're going to do that. Fix the hole, do some decorative stitches. Next, I was going to cut off the sleeves, but I like the sleeves with the white shirt cuffed. So we are going to cuff the sleeves, and then we're permanently going to keep them in place with those same crisscross stitches that we're doing at the top. We're going to do those on the sleeves. Now, I haven't decided if I'm going to do 3 different colors, right? Like neckline, and then one color, and then a different color on each sleeve. We'll see. I may just use the same color for all three. It's easier. Again, we are going for quick and easy, not for overthinking. And then the last thing that I'm going to do, so it's super long and most t-shirts are really, really long on me, which is why I love a good crop. And so that was the one thing I was kind of struggling with. It was like, well, which technique do I use? I could just crop it with scissors, and then I could do like a high-low hem, which I really like. I also could crop it and add like a ruffle detail to the bottom or something, and that is where my brain, that's where it went. We're gonna go with that. So I'm gonna crop to about here, my natural waistline, and I'm gonna use the leftover t-shirt material. So this is another reason, so I'm not creating any waste. So I'm going to use the leftover t-shirt material at the bottom, and I'm going to create a gather around, you know, the bottom of the t-shirt just to add a little bit of interest. So that, my friends, is the plan. Let's see if we can get it done. It is 3:20, and I always like to wrap up my studio time by 5. So better get started. Okay, so I'm switching it up just a little bit. I'm actually going to machine stitch the zigzags because one of the things that takes the most time is hand stitching. So we're going to use this really pretty pink kind of shimmery thread, and I actually used it yesterday. I made this little guide so I could see all of my stitches, all my decorative stitches, so I can play around with those. So we're going to use that thread there. We are going to use, on the Singer Heavy Duty, I'm going to use the S1, and then I'm just going to use a zigzag, and that's going to give us this like double zigzag, and I think it'll look really cool with the color scheme, and then I don't have to switch thread at all. I'm also going to use a width of 5 because I want this to be pretty big to go around the neckline. So anyway, so let's, fingers crossed that this turns out okay. Okay, so I have cut the bottom of the shirt off and I just sewed it together to create a really long strip. Now what I need to do is gather it. And normally, you know, there's so many ways to create gathers. And I am going to go with something different today. I'm going to try the lazy person's way to do this because it doesn't need to be perfect. It's a t-shirt. It's just to give it some gathers on the item. So I'm going to start just back stitching and locking everything in place. I'm actually going to put everything back the way it was and put all my settings correct. And I am using a straight stitch because this is going to be gathered and it's not going to be expanding with the knit. It should be fine. And then all we're going to do is literally, we're going to stitch and push the fabric into our foot. That's it. We're trying something new here. It may not be perfect, but it's going to save us time. Remember, the whole theme of this week is let's see if we can save any time. How is it looking? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, yeah, there's a couple of places, but where it's straight here, I can actually fix that when I put it on the shirt. Okay, so it's not so bad, and it actually is so much faster, especially if you're not looking for accuracy. This could be the way to do it. And I did realize that I sewed my pieces on wrong sides together. So one side's going to curl out, one side's going to curl in. Does that bother me? I don't think so. Okay, so we are exactly at 1 hour. So we have our little peplum down here. I did do some edge stitching around it to prevent it from flipping. I'm not even going to trim this. The only thing is once I have it on, the sleeves themselves feel super heavy. So I'm either going to cut off the sleeves completely and maybe have this a muscle tee for summer, which actually I kind of like, or I might cut strips. In fact, we'll use our smaller scissors. Okay, I made it. Within an hour, I am finished. And you know why? Because I didn't get hung up on the details. I didn't try to be perfect. And I think that's so important because when we're sewing,
well, when I'm sewing in particular, I am always conscious of the stitch line, the seams, everything. I just want it to be perfect because it's a representation of what I'm making. But perfection is so boring and it's not necessary. You do want to have really strong seams. You do, of course, want to make sure that you have the garment integrity. But, if I have some of these stitches that aren't perfect and, like I didn't finish my edges, it's a t-shirt. It's not going to unravel. It's going to be fine. Keep telling myself that. So this actually is a zero waste upcycle, and I'm really proud of that. It definitely has a girly vibe, which I love. So, I know Kid and Play 90s hip hop, 80s, 90s hip hop doesn't quite go with the vibe, but it does for me. So the only amount of waste that I had even left over was just this little bit of the hem that I had to cut off because it was going to be a little too thick. So you know what I did? I just made a little bow, and now we have these adorable little sleeves. We have our peplum, we have our little bow, and then of course we have our fun little print in the back, which we did not impact. So that was a quick 1 hour project. And again, it's one of those things when you are working on a piece of art, which upcycling is an art, my friends. It is. You should be proud of the work that you do. But we have to start somewhere. And a lot of times I just get afraid to make the first cut, to try something new, because I don't want to damage something. I want it to be usable and I don't want to create any more waste. But when you have something like this that already had stains on it, I didn't pay very much, I am wearing it for a specific reason, this was a great way for me to practice these different techniques. Now that I've done these techniques, I might incorporate them into my Beastie Boys shirt, which we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I'm pretty proud of this one, and I certainly will wear this on our little bus tour. And the other piece that we made today was the little crown. So anyway, so that was our day. I'm going to clean up my office right now. It's always good to clean your office before you start your next day. And I'm going to go get some food.
So this morning I, got up, I did the Wordle, I relaxed. I started organizing my list of upcycles that I want to work on this week. And honestly, I got so overwhelmed with the number of choices. I have so many different items. In fact, I actually added more to the pile. I don't know. It's how my brain works. And then, of course, I came up here to start planning, and we're doing something totally different because it's how my brain is working today. But originally, one of the items that I wanted to work on today, another quick upcycle, to show you some approachable methods that you can upcycle something within an hour pretty easily, even as a beginner. So one of the projects that I thought would be great to share is taking a denim top. So, I use a lot of denim. And what happens is I typically cut off the legs and I use all of that. And then I'm left over with this top piece. So I started going through my denim scrap bin. And as I was doing that, I actually found an intact pair of shorts. Okay, they're nothing fancy. They're like Ann Taylor Loft. They have a lot of stretch to them, but they're fully intact. Now, I could have done my idea where I was going to take this and then I was going to turn it into a skirt and add like a plaid bottom. That was my original thought. I don't wear a lot of skirts, but I thought it would make a really cute project and I could always put biker shorts underneath it. So that was originally my idea. Then I tried them on. They actually fit me. Now, I don't wear shorts either. I don't like to be super exposed. I'm also pretty pale, so I don't want to get a lot of sun. But I tried them on and they suck me in the right places because they're, they have a lot of that stretch in them. The only problem with them is that they are super short. I mean, this rise right here is like maybe 2 inches. Okay, it's 2.5 inches. So it's like a 2.5 inch rise. For me, nope, that's obscene. Not gonna do it. So then I remembered, I thought, how can I salvage these? What can I do? That's kind of in the same vein of splicing items together. And I have this skirt. And I got this skirt at a thrift store years and years ago. The elastic is all stretched out, but I just couldn't get rid of it because I knew there would be a use for it someday. There's so many different pieces of like lace, and this fabric right here is very structured and very thick. This is really flowy, soft black lace. Underneath, I have this is like horsehair, and then I've got this adorable pink lace as well with the black finish. So there's lots to work with here. And what I'm thinking, this is what we're going to try to do. I need to add length to my shorts, and that might be a common issue that you run into as well. Maybe it's a pair of pants or it's a top, but maybe you just want to add a little bit of length. This is a way to do that. Now I'm using lace, but you could also use fabric. You can also just use additional denim and create any sort of design you want. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this longer sheer, and I'm okay with it being sheer because it's not like I'm trying to cover anything up. The shorts, they cover everything, but I just want to add length so that it's a little more comfortable. So I'm going to cut off the bottom lace all the way around, and then I'm going to half it. And what we're going to do is we're going to gather both of those pieces, and then we're going to stitch them to the legs. So you may have seen right now, it's very trendy, but like bloomers with lace at the bottom. I have a friend, Erin, who's actually working on a prototype for a pair right now, and they are stinking adorable using upcycled materials. I can't wait to see the finished product, but I don't have time to make a pair of pants. Again, this is supposed to be a quick upcycle for you. But that's what we're going to start with, and then we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so now what I've done is I took that lace and I gathered it. So I just did the long basting stitch and I did a gather. And then I decided I was going to put this edge on the outside as opposed to the inside, just because it's a little scratchy. And I also like how it looks. It kind of looks, like that bloomer style that I was thinking. Still have no idea what this is going to look like on, but all I'm going to do now, so I've pinned these in place, and then I tied off the ends so that the gathers are secure. And what I'm just trying to decide right now is if I should use a zigzag stitch or if I should use a straight stitch. And the reason for that is because there's elastic in these pants and they're going to stretch, I do want to make sure that I have enough leeway for them to stretch. So I think I just made up my mind. I'm just going to do a zigzag stitch. I'll just use it in black, so it's not going to be that noticeable because it'll be over here, and I'm not going to make it super wide. So we'll make it pretty, not so wide, zigzag stitch all the way around on both legs. Okay, so I only made myself bleed twice. Only twice today, so far. Okay, I'm going to show you, but I feel like we're going to do one more thing to add to the full look, because this shirt does not go. Here is what we have so far. I actually think they're pretty cute, but yeah, it's all about styling with this, right? Like, you're not going to wear a t-shirt like this. So what I was thinking, instead of cutting all this apart, now that I have that little piece cut off, honestly, it still works. And I'm thinking I could just add a couple of little straps to the top. It might be a little too much. It's kind of like a baby doll top, but it could be a look. The only thing is this elastic is totally stretched out. So I could do a couple things. I could add a new elastic. I could easily do that, but it still has a little stretch to it. And again, I don't want to create more waste. If I don't have to, I don't want to. So I think that I could honestly put those seams on the side, add a couple of straps, and I think it would work. Okay, let me play around with it and see what we can come up with.
Okay, honestly, I am a little obsessed with these shorts. My husband even just said to me, he's like, "Are you sure you're going to wear shorts? You never do." And I'm like, "I think I'm going to wear these." So here's how they turned out. They are so stinking adorable. I just styled them in kind of a maximalist way. In fact, I'll give you a quick little look here at the photo shoot that I just did. I ended up just taking that skirt. I didn't add straps to it because I couldn't quite decide what I wanted to do, but I put them on, and as I started styling the look, I also found another piece from a partially upcycled item. I've been holding on to it because I kept thinking, oh, this could be a really cute shrug over something. This was the time. So the black and white button front piece, that shrug, is part of an upcycle project. The top, right, the top is the rest of that slip. I didn't have to do anything else to it. I've got the shorts. The boots that I'm wearing are thrifted. And of course, I had to do my fun little maximalist bow in the hair. And yeah, this is how I would actually wear. Right, I'm wearing Birks right now, but this is how I would wear this on kind of a regular basis if I was wearing this during the day, just like a little linen top. But I think this is a super successful upcycle. And again, it didn't take much time. This was one of those projects. I think the reason it took me a little bit longer was just because my brother called while I was in the middle of the project, so I had to put it to the side. The longest part of this whole thing, honestly, cutting out the lace just to make sure that I didn't, nick any wrong spots, and then just pinning it in place. Those are the two things that took the most time, but it was certainly a project that is less than 1 hour. And you can use this same technique on not only shorts, but on jeans, on pajama pants, on a top. Think about doing something around a neckline, around a waist, around a sleeve, an armhole. Once you have, some of these techniques in your repertoire, the creative possibilities are just endless. But speaking of endless, it's only 2:43. I usually work in my studio until 5 o'clock, but I'm feeling really successful today. Those days where you just feel good. So I feel like maybe I need to call it a day while I'm ahead. Maybe not. Who knows? I'm going to put some music on, clean up my space, and see how I'm feeling. All right, good morning. So it is only 9:30 a.m. I'm in the studio a little bit earlier than normal. We got up about 5:30 a.m. today. It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous day. We didn't want to waste any of it. And also after yesterday afternoon's upcycle, I'm feeling pretty inspired. Super inspired. I also have a team meeting today at 3, so I'll be out of the studio the rest of the day. So I wanted to get a couple of techniques done so that I can show you, so I can get this video out to you as soon as possible. And one of the super simple techniques that is still persisting. This has been around now for a few years. In fact, a really good friend of mine, Kathy, sent me a video. I think this might have been, I have time blindness. I don't even know how long it has been. But I'm going to say it was probably a year and a half ago. Let's go with that. That's a good time. But you've probably seen it. You've seen shirts that have the little bow detail in ribbon on the sides, kind of cut out. It's persisted. It's been around for quite a while. And I think it's a great way to add a little detail. And it also doesn't take very long. And it's super adorable. So after creating the lacy shorts bloomers yesterday, right? Again, so inspired. These are one of my favorite, actually so far, my favorite make of the week. I also found in my stash a bunch of notions that are really pretty lightweight, kind of lacy trims. So this is what we're going to use. In fact, so we're going to use this one right here, and it's because it's thin enough that I can use it to create the bow. No, it's finished on both sides, so I won't have to, do any sort of hemming on there. There won't be any unraveling, and I think it'll just be really cute against denim. So once again, I went into my Upcycle pile, not the items I had originally brought into my studio, but I have a whole pile of denim that I haven't cut up. And typically it's because it's like a 501. So I don't tend to cut up 501s unless there's like a custom request or if I'm making shorts, but I definitely don't use them for just scrap fabric unless they're super damaged. But if they're damaged, they look so cool on. So anyway, so this is a pair of 501s. They are a size 32, but they're not. They're not. They have shrunken up. They fit like a boyfriend jean on me. So they have enough movement, but they're not too big, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do, they are too long though. That is the thing. I think it says they're a size 36 length. This is a really great thing to look for at the thrift store as well. Those super long and talls, because you get more fabric out of them. And a lot of times they do just end up in the landfill because they don't sell. It's a very, niche market, but they're super easy to hem. So we certainly could just do a plain hem on these. 100%. But it does have kind of a kick flare on them. So I'm actually going to crop them to my calf. And then we're going to try our hand at adding a bow. Again, never done it. We're just going to wing it and see how it turns out.
So first thing we need to do is crop these jeans. Now, I am not going to do a finished hem. I am literally going to cut them and unravel them because I really like the way that looks. So I tried them on, marked them with just a safety pin. So what I'm gonna do, because I want these to be the exact same length, I'm just going to lay this out flat. And then once I cut off one side, I'm just gonna use this as a template. Rotary cutter, and we are going to just line it up right here. This looks good to me. My rotary cutter is dull, but I'm gonna get as much use as possible. Okay, so there is the first leg cut. And then we'll cut this side off. And then we'll keep these pieces. Of course, we can use these for other things. So now we're gonna put the bow on the outer seam, not on the inside. You wouldn't be able to really see it. So we're gonna put it here. And what we need to do is get our piece to lay flat. So we're just going to do it right here so you can decide how high you want this to be. So we'll cut this open here in the center so that it opens up. And then we'll do a reinforcement stitch here just to make sure that it doesn't continue. And then this is where we're gonna have our bow detail. I think I like it hitting about right here. And then again, we do wanna mirror this on the other side. So let's start by just cutting this open and then we'll measure it. And then before I actually slice this open, I am just gonna reinforce this really fast. That way I don't run any risk. I know exactly how high I need to go and it'll just make me feel a little bit more comfortable. So now I have both legs on the outside seam just tacked with a couple of really tight stitches here. This one's a little bit stronger, but we're actually gonna go over it again when we stitch on the bow. So this is really just to give me a visual and also to prevent it from going any further. So now what we need to do is we need to cut the seam up to that point. And one of the things that I like about the side seam is that you can see, you can actually just cut right down the center, and that's gonna separate it because the seam is pressed open. That does make it look so much prettier and you don't really have to do much more to it. So I'm gonna use my denim scissors and then I'm just going to cut. You can use a razor, whatever you want, up to that line. So now that we've done that, let's do the same thing to the other side. So now we just need to decide how big you want your bow. We know we're gonna need to have, stitch it this way, stitch it this way. We'll need to have enough to go to here. So we need this times 2, which however much that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In fact, let's just go 7 times 2. So we'll do 14 inches there, and then we'll need enough for our bow. So essentially I'm doing double. So it would be like 14 and 14, 28 inches, I think should be sufficient to make this adorable. I just don't want to cut off too much. Again, trying to eliminate waste. This is why it is so important to plan your projects. Now, when I'm talking to you about doing quick and easy projects, yes, quick and easy is one thing, but then doing something and ending up with a lot of waste, that is not what our goal is. So my bow is going to be 28 inches. Yours may vary. First, we will just pin it in place, and I'm just going to give a little bit left over here. Now, we can just do a loop, and come all the way down, and we'll actually see how much we have left over to play with. And then this will allow us, this will let us know how much we have to play with. And then we'll just keep expanding them until we have this on the bottom. Okay, so now what we can do, now that we know how much we're playing with, we can pin this in place, and then there we go. Now that is going to be cute. So I'm going to make sure I stitch. I'm actually going to do 2 lines of stitching just to keep this in place. We're going to stitch close to the edge over here. We're going to go all the way up to the top of the loop. Okay, again, keeping all that in place. And then we're going to come back down and stitch the inside as well. Then we're going to come back up and we're going to stitch the outside down. And if you need to tack down any more of your bow, you can do that here. So we will go ahead. I'm actually going to pin this bow in place so it doesn't wiggle out. And we're going to do the same thing on the other leg. One more technique I want to show you now that I have these stitched on is how I'm going to distress the bottom. So I've already started to do this one and I realized you may want to see how I do it. So I really just use two different tools. This is just a little sandpaper thing. I don't know. I got this in some kit, but it has this great little sandpaper. I just find it to be super useful. I also use needle nose pliers to pull off the extra threads. So one thing we could have done before I stitched this on was throw it in the dryer to see if I could get this to unravel a little bit, but honestly, this is going to be just fine. So I just take this sandpaper and I just rub it across the hem, and you'll start to see that the threads start to come off. It starts to get a little bit more worn. And then you can come back in and use your little needle nose pliers to pull out those threads if you want to have more of those. So that's just kind of when I'm doing like a quick distressing, because I love to have that distress look on there. I do want it to be kind of even all the way. So I'm going to go back and trim these up so they're not so long, and I will do it on the other side. But I did want to show you that technique because I realized it works for me and maybe it'll work for you.
Okay, that was one of the quickest upcycles I've ever done, and I didn't run into any issues. So we're going to clap for that. And just look how adorable it turned out. Like, it's better than I could have imagined. Now, you can also embellish them a little bit. So you can add like a button to the center of the bow. You can put jewels, embellishments of any kind. You can also add tulle. Like, you can go as wild and creative as you want with this, but I'm pretty happy. In fact, I'm going to wear this today to my meeting this afternoon. So with that said, I'm going to grab some lunch, and I'm pretty sure we can squeeze in at least one more upcycle today before I have to leave. So now it is 12:51. I ate lunch. We went on a family walk, and I don't have much time. So I did find one more super simple project that I'm going to do, and it's with just this plain white muscle tee. So I've had this muscle tee, again, so many things I just keep finding in my own closet. And I think I keep holding on to it because it's crisp white. And in my brain, I think there may be a time where I just want to wear a plain white shirt. Well, you know, it's been over a year and I haven't worn it. So obviously wearing a plain white shirt is not going to happen. So for this, what we're going to do is a super fast and simple technique that doesn't cost a lot of money. And we, my friends, are going to stamp it. And we're just going to use some stamps that I got secondhand. We're going to use just regular old ink pad. So I don't even use fabric stamps for this because once I use the iron and press it, it makes it permanent on the top. And we're just going to do a really small text right on the front, super simple. And let me just show you the tools that I'm using.
So first thing I really encourage you to have is just a piece of cardboard. I pretty much use whatever I have around just so that you don't print through your item. So I just use, in this case, this is just a random thing that I have hanging out. So we're going to start by protecting our piece. Also, this is already clean, and it's a good best practice to remove any of the lint from your item when you are going to be stamping or printing, just so that it doesn't impede on your design. So I just do that a little bit. Now, when I mentioned that I'm not using really any special tools, I'm not kidding. I use this cheapo Recollections dye ink pad. So this one is a dye ink pad. I have used this child safe washable ink. I don't recommend it. Washable ink. I've seen it fade. It's not my favorite, but I already had it, so I tried it. I wouldn't recommend this. Just make sure you get something that is permanent. And you can try different colors. Now, it's not going to, because it's not a fabric ink, it's not going to give you the most perfect coverage, but that's not the vibe I'm going for. I want, I want the DIY aesthetic. So I have little baby letters here, but I want them to be a little bit bigger. And then I have one of these stamp scrubbers. Again, I got this at Goodwill for $1. I think it was $1. I think it was a 50% off day. And I use this just to put my stamps in as I'm stamping them. It really helps. So now we are going to map out what we want it to say. First of all, knowing where you want this to live is a good idea. I'm not here for perfection. I'm trying to get better at not being a perfectionist. And I am using a pen. So you may say, oh no, you're using a pen. But this is a friction heat erasable pen. So it will erase when I press all this. So it's fine. With this one, I know the saying that I want. So we are going to find all of my letters. And there's only one of each letter, so I kind of have to figure this out. Now you want to be careful because I'm using a white t-shirt. I don't want to drop this. I just got it on my thumb. So let's make sure that our thumb is clean. All right, so we are going to just start here. Again, this is where having a straight line would be helpful, but beautiful. Now I can decide if I want to add anything else, but I think that that's it. I feel like this is sufficient. This is all I need. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press this, and that'll remove this ink line. It'll also make this permanent, and then our t-shirt will be done.
Okay, so that was like a 10-minute upcycle. So simple, and I am in love with the result. It may have taken 15 minutes because I did clean up my supplies after the fact and put them away. I know, I'm pretty impressed. But speaking of impressed, how cool is this? I really do love it. And now I have so many blank t-shirts that I need to add to my pile. So let me know which was your favorite upcycle this week. And also, if there are any other techniques you want me to try, send them my way. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, see ya!